COVID-19, the global supply chain stress test. Let us begin with the COVID-19 pandemic, which became one of the largest operational disruptions in modern shipping industry. The COVID-19 spread across the world. Many governments introduced lockdowns, quarantine systems, border restrictions, and port control measures. As a result, global shipping immediately experienced port congestion, operational shutdowns, container shortage, and severe logistic disruption. One of the biggest problems was the global container imbalance. Containers accumulated in the wrong regions, while manufacturers and exporters faced shortages everywhere. This caused freight rates to rise dramatically. According to Reuters World Container Index, the container freight rates peaked at approximately $10,377 per 40-foot containers in September 2021. Before pandemic in 2019, the same index was approximately $1,420. That represents an increase for more than 600%. At the same time, global port operations shut down significantly. According to AMCOL, vessel time spent in ports increased by approximately 13.7% in 2021. This created severe congestion, schedule delays, and supply chain instability worldwide. But perhaps the most important issue was the cruise chain crisis. Hundreds of thousands of seafarers were unable to disembark, rotate contracts, or return home. Many remain on board ships far beyond their contract periods. An international maritime organization described this situation as both a humanitarian crisis and a maritime safety concern. COVID-19 revealed important realities. Shipping is not only about ship and cargo. It is also about the people. When shipping slows down, the world feels the impact immediately because shipping remains the operational backbone of the global economy. And this was only the beginning of the much larger period of the global disruption. Russia-Ukraine war reshaping global trade flows. Another major shock to the global maritime industry was the Russian-Ukraine war. This conflict did not affect only Europe. It immediately affected shipping, energy markets, food security, and global trade flows. The Black Sea region is strategically important for grain export, fertilizers, crude oil, LNG, and bulk cargo trade. When the conflict escalated, shipping operations in Black Sea faced disruption, or operational uncertainty, and increased geopolitical risk. According to UNCTAD, global grain trade declined by approximately 2.6% in 2022 due to Black Sea disruption. This may appear to be a relatively small percentage, but when applied to the global food supply chains, the impact becomes extremely significant. Food price increase, commodities markets become volatile, and many countries face concerns regarding food security. At the same time, energy trade patterns began to change dramatically. Russian oil flow shifted increasingly toward Asia, while Europe searched for alternative energy supplies. This created longer shipping distance and increased ton-miles demand for both tanker and bulk carrier markets. In shipping, distance matters. When cargo travel farther, an industry requires more vessels, more energies, and more operational capability. As a result, voyage distance increased, bunker consumption increased, and freight market volatility intensified. Insurance costs also increased. Geopolitical risk premiums become more significant, especially for vessels operating in high-risk regions. The war therefore changed not only geopolitics, but also shipping economics, trade geography, and global cargo movement patterns. The maritime industry quickly learned that the geopolitical conflict can reshape global trade routes almost overnight. This is why modern shipping must now be understood not only as transportation, but also as part of the global strategic system. And the next crisis would moderate this reality even more clearly. The next major disruption occurred in the Red Sea. Beginning in late 2023 and continuing into 2024, commercial shipping in the region faced increasingly security threats from Houthi attacks. This affected vessels transiting the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Gulf of Aden, and the Red Sea. For the global shipping companies, the issue was no longer theoretical. It becomes an immediate operational and security concern as attacks increase. Many major shipping lines decide to reroute vessels away from the Suez Canal. According to UNCTAD, traffic through the Gulf of Aden declined approximately 76%. At the same time, Suez Canal traffic declined approximately 70%. Meanwhile, vessels arrived via the Cape of Good Hope increased approximately 89%. This was a dramatic shift in global shipping patterns within a very short period of time. The consequences were immediate. Voyage distance became longer. Transit time between Asia and Europe increased significantly for ship owners and operators. This meant higher bunkering consumption, higher operating costs, increased crew pressures, and lower schedule reliability. Insurance costs also increased sharply. War risk premium rose because vessels were operating in a high-risk environment. Container shipping schedule became increasingly unpredictable. This affected ports, terminals, inland logistics, manufacturers, and global retailers. In shipping, time is the money. When voyages become longer, the entire logistic chain becomes more expensive. UNCTAD also reported that global container vessel ton-mile demand increased significantly because of the rerouting. This is important because even if cargo volume remains similar, longer distance require more ships, more fuels, more operational capabilities, and higher overall cost. What began as a regional security issue in the Red Sea quickly became a global logistic and shipping cost crisis. This demonstrated another important lesson. Modern shipping is highly interconnected. A disruption in one strategic corridor can rapidly affect global ship supply chains, freight markets, inflation, and economic stability worldwide. And perhaps no maritime choke point illustrates these strategic vulnerabilities more clearly than the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz, energy choke point and oil price shock. Another maritime choke point with enormous global importance is the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz is not simply a narrow waterway in the Middle East. It is one of the world's most critical energy choke points. This route serves as a major corridor for crude oil, condensate, and LNG export from the Gulf regions. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day transit through the Strait of Hormuz. That represents approximately 20% of global petroleum liquid consumption. In other words, roughly one of every 5 barrels of petroleum consumed globally pass through this narrow waterway. Even more important for Asia, approximately 84% of this crude oil flow are destined for Asian markets. This means China, Japan, South Korea, India, and many Asian economies depend highly on the stability of Hormuz. As a result, any geopolitical tension in these regions immediately affects shipping, energy markets, and the global economy. Historically, during periods of escalation of military tension, Brent crude oil price often spike at the same time. War risk insurance premiums for tanker increase significantly. Tanker freight rates also become highly volatile. This creates higher costs for ship owners, charterers, energy importers, and ultimately consumers. Because energy costs influence manufacturing, transportation, electricity, logistics. Higher oil price can quickly contribute to global inflationary pressures. This demonstrates how closely connected maritime security and global economics have become. In extreme scenarios, tanker operators may even consider rerouting, although alternative routes would be significantly longer, more expensive, and operationally complex. What happened in Hormuz does not stay in Hormuz. Its impact spread rapidly to shipping market, energy system, and global supply chain. Therefore, Hormuz is not only a Middle East issue. It is fundamentally global economic issues and an Asian energy security issue. And if Hormuz represents the world's critical energy choke points, then the Strait of Malacca represents Asia's strategic maritime lifeline. Finally, let us return to one of the most tragically important waterways in the world, the Strait of Malacca. For Asia, Malacca is the more than shipping route. It is strategic economic lifeline. The Strait of Malacca connects the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea, and the Pacific trading system. It serves as the primary maritime corridor linking Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. According to industrial estimates, more than 100 to 1,500 vessels transit through the Strait of Malacca every year. The strait handled approximately 22% of global trade and approximately 29% of global maritime oil flows move through this route. This means that every last portion of the global economy depends on the stability of this narrow maritime corridor. Malacca is critically important for container shipping, energy transportation, manufacturing supply chains, and regional economic stability. Countries such as China, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and many Asian economies depend heavily on uninterrupted maritime access through Malacca. This is why any disruption in the strait could immediately affect global supply chains, freight rates, energy security, and regional economies. However, the Strait of Malacca also faces several strategic risks. This includes congestion, navigation bottlenecks, piracy, maritime security threats, and geopolitical vulnerability. The strait is relatively narrow in several areas. At the same time, traffic density remains extremely high. This creates operational pressure for ship operators, traffic management, and regional maritime authorities. In many ways, Malacca represents the operational heartbeat of Asian trade. If the Malacca shut down, Asia feels the impact. And because Asia is deeply connected to global manufacturing and supply chains, the world feels the impact as well. This is why maritime choke points must no longer be viewed simply as geographic locations. They are economic pressure points, energy security corridors, and strategic access to the global economy. Taken together, COVID-19, the Russian-Ukraine war, Red Sea crisis, Hormuz, and Malacca all demonstrate one important reality. Modern shipping has entered a strategic era, and future maritime leaders must be prepared to navigate not only ships, but also uncertainty, complexity, and global change.